All right, greetings everybody, and it's time to take a look at the new version of Oldoa. And before we get started, yes, I did try and fail miserably once, no, two times to try and get this character. And guess my luck is on the hero side this time, not the villain side. What you gonna do? Anyway, so today we're going to be taking a look at the data for this, as well as giving a little bit of a thoughts on this character, because my testing of this character is probably going to be just a little bit later. And I say that just because I'm just, I'm going to take a little more time with this one for figuring out exactly what I want to demo. Just like an extra day or whatnot. But I'm quite interested. Before we get started, I'm interested in this character for a bunch of reasons. One, never really hated Oldoa that much. I just don't like her original design at all. And she's kind of on a douchey team. This one feels like at least a little bit better from my perspective. And I'm really interested in the idea of a ice magic tank, in the sense that she deals magic damage, because, Polka, or Water Veritas if you prefer, she's now in JP, and people are going to start getting closer and closer to maybe getting her at a decent level. And it would be kind of neat to make an all magic team between ice and water, or water and earth and ice, or some kind of interesting combination here. So yeah, I'm particularly kind of interested in this character. And yeah, let's show off the limit burst here, then we'll show off what she looks like in a pure ice elemental team. More of a arena based team later, but as you can see, limit burst is very much snek themed, and so good for her that she's keeping the heritage of Team Snek. All right, swapping over to the ice element, and we'll just show off her kit. Now, as you can see, this is a really strong looking tank already. Speed is considerably lower than some of the other units that are on this in this party. Just for comparison, take a look at Snow, who is, by proxy, a very similar type role as to what we're looking at today. And you can see Snow with his like Trust Mastery Stones, as well as just regular equipment. You can see that he is pretty close to Oldoa, with the exception that Oldoa has more single target resistance, more AoE resistance, a newer kit that is effectively more in line to what a modern tank is. But there's no really skirting around the fact that the thing in this build, I mean, obviously her HP would be higher if she had the stones that... No, there's a weird way of saying that. She would be generally better, but I think her speed is at least a little bit slower. Esper, whatnot makes a difference. So, taking a look first at the equipment. This new piece of equipment is a staff. Some people have been wondering what she falls into. And from my knowledge, at the very least, she is falling into the staff category, the same as Soul. And this piece of equipment comes with the condition of ice or water. So any character will get increased healing power from this, which is pretty whatever. The condition of being met for being an ice or water character will give AoE resistance of 8 and magic attack resistance penetration of 20, which is a nice piece of equipment for water and ice elemental magic damage dealers who are looking for that kind of equipment. So pretty cool there. There's probably some kind of application, hint, that this will be good with into now and the future, and I'm curious to see whether or not it will get there. So bringing up the data from Wotv Calc, 3 move, 1 jump, 100 cost, semi-limited character in that she is only around when another story 3 characters are around. Staff, type weapon, hat, clothing, and accessories. Her Trust Mastery. is an accessory, 440 HP, 12 defense, 4 agility, and 6 critical evade, which is a nice accessory. It also gives defense of 25 for 3 turns, elemental chain resistance of 30, and grants the following effect: negative defense penetration when a attack hits. So a pretty decent TMR. It has 2 uses. It's giving a very nice offensive. It's giving a little bit of defensive in here. Well, okay, it's mostly a defensive TMR, but it can be power up your offensive by effectively making the opponent worse at getting through defense penetration. That's pretty good. Master ability debuff, weakening effect resistance, so she's better at being, at resisting debuffs. Healing power up by 15. Single target and elemental chain resistance up by a bunch for getting to the dream enhancement, which is pretty good. Taking a look at her skills here. Support skills, she has what it counts, where it counts, which is increased chance of being targeted. Should also say, before we go any further, that she is intended to be a tank, and specifically more akin to being a anti-physical tank, but she can deal with magical based damage fairly well. So before we get any further, increase HP, single target resistance, and when HP drops below 50%, she will get a 40% HP heal, which is really good. Looking at the rest of her kit, Devout, as well as our, Scholar, we're looking at some extra defense, some accuracy, skill, activation time, or you can just use her other ability, which is reduce physical damage taken. This is an effect that cannot be dispelled, and increase strike resistance by 12%, which is pretty good. I mean, it's just anti-physical, the ability. I mean, some other times, maybe if you were dealing with mages, you could go maybe with the Devout one if you don't care that much about magical attack. We'll talk about that in a second when we wrap up this character. Her new counter is countering all damage and reducing the damage taken by 30%. All damage types, which is really, really nice here, because it works again to her being potentially good in multiple situations rather than very, very specific situations. Now, as for Scholar, he does get the deal damage, absorb 30%. She gets restore CT ability. She gets some extra damage abilities from this job. The big thing is that there is skill activation time, and in the main part of her kit, there is no skill activation time except on her couple of her abilities. So it does kind of synergize, and it may be, if you want to talk about using Scholar eventually, well, we'll come back to that. As for Devout, it does give her some more healing options, some more support options, which is generally pretty good. We got a cat coming in here. Say hello to Sora. He's making a cameo today. Middle of Dad's recording. But you. That's a lot of hair. You're getting the blue eyes today, of all things. So he's actually watching my mouse, which will now be a little distracting. Anyway, you got bored. Given that Oldoa does have some excess healing power up, also from both her staff as well as her master ability or dream enhancement, one of the two, it's not unreasonable to potentially think that healing would be a viable option for her, given that, she has an HP heal. She can absorb part of the damage from various attacks that could end up really paying out for just having healing power up in general. But it's an option more than anything. What you're giving up in turn for it is increased max HP, ice resistance, wind resistance, which these abilities I'm never super big crazy for, because in general, you're kind of already good against those matchups, so it doesn't feel that amazing. The other ability with casting time, mind you, does have the charm status effect and decrease AoE resistance if charm status effect hits. It is single target, which is not overly crazy about. I mean, between that and the casting time, I actually just don't think that this is good. in most cases. So what I generally feel is that you probably go Devout or Scholar. I think her AI, at least to my initial knowledge, is based more on Scholar, but we'll test that later and I'll comment on it in the next video if it turns out to be not true. Either way, I think that when it comes to this, probably Scholar will be her ideal one, but casting time may make all of these subparts just kind of a little bit awkward. Thankfully, her main kit is really, really good. I mean, really, really solid. First, her basic ability, which has range, defense, and spirit up for a bunch, and automatically casts an ability when you kill a target, which is kind of cool. If you go all the way down and take a look at that, it's increased 120 by up to 1 kill, so it's a pretty decent kill. Don't know if you'll ever get it, and I don't know how useful it'll be, but it's nice to have. As for the Wall of Text ability, it's a lot of stuff. It's ignore fatal damage, it's shell, it's give a few extra things, absorb damage for damage on for target. Have one or more. Basically, if she has that ignore fatal damage, she also absorbing damage off of her other abilities, and that's really, really, really good. Because until you cancel that, it's really powerful. Taking a look at her next ability, reduce damage taken by 50% for 3 times, increased chance of being targeted. So an ability that you can cast twice that uses TP that is giving you a barrier, that's great. Increased chance of being targeted, that's something we always want on our tanks. And activates 2 other abilities. First off, you are immune to CT down, which is quite good by Sora. Next up, granting Dispel to Dispel of Auto Revive to allies. This is an aura effect that goes, I do believe, 4 panels in each direction from Oldoa, which is pretty good. And as it just so happens, I mean, like, you look at this, and that's just, I mean, it can't be dispelled, it can't be gotten rid of, so long as the aura is in effect. And it does give other characters an ability to, or a chance to actually use this right away, so it's really good. It also reduces physical damage taken by allies by 40%, which is pretty strong. If you're going to get hit by an AoE, your allies are covered, and it does end up covering fairly nicely. That ability is really good. As for select a 2 target ability, basically physical damage reduction of 5 and magical damage reduction, as well as chance of confusion, which is really neat. And you select targets. And getting into EX, this is also going to absorb 30% of the damage done, whether you have this in effect or not. Last 2 abilities. One is a kind of AoE Crife style ability. Yes, Crife style ability. And it's 100% hit chance. It decreases spirit. It's, you know, I think to note here, a lot of these abilities are very, very short range, which is generally a problem. But since this is a unit that can generate hate, that will get enemies in close, it's probably not as big of a deal. But this one having casting time, it is a little bit slower and a little bit less likely to potentially work unless you are throwing espers on that are going to fix that. Breaking magic barriers on an AoE that is quite short range is her last ability that also decreases agility. And yeah, so I know, Sora. What's there to say about this character? I really want to get off on saying that, or get off to a start in the recap here, saying that I think Oldoa is an absolutely top tier tank and a really great addition to potentially earth, to potentially water, but definitely to ice. I think that her kit has essentially everything that you are looking from a tank perspective, and some interesting offensive options too. All of that is just really, really good. And she does have a few extra benefits, as she has the aura style effect. She has everything that these newer type characters should have to make them really, really appealing. So I am super happy with that. If there is one thing to talk about that is her major weak point in her kit besides casting time, which is kind of a little awkward if you're looking for a good Esper to still put on a tank. But the thing that I'm not really happy about is accuracy. Accuracy in her kit comes at the price of either having to really change her equipment to get it up to a decent enough level, because it doesn't matter if she's even dealing really good damage or even mid-tier damage. I mean, like, you look at her limit burst, and that is something we forgot to talk about. The dispel, the absorb 30% of the damage done on an AoE, that also increases attack resistance by 15% and adds to something like a situation like this. All of that is just a general net positive, except for the fact when she cannot hit a target, which is really, really not good. So yeah, Oldoa, I have to give a shout out to for being an insanely better version than her original version. She is a unit that I think, like, ice and water aficionados are going to be very happy to get, and who knows, the synergy between different characters, between her and A2, between her and Water Veritas, between all characters past, present, and future is something that I am particularly interested in. Well, so congratulations, Oldoa, you finally got there. You got me interested. So much so that I'm going to do 2 polls here. I'm not particularly saving for anything, and at this point, I'm just going to kind of go for it. So here we go, 2 polls for entertainment value. She's not a perfect unit, unfortunately, which is a little disappointing because obviously when we're talking about a character who we always want the best value possible out of that character, right? We always want to see that character as good as they possibly can be. But I'm really happy and impressed with her general kit, and I think she will be good enough. It's interesting too, looking at Dario, who came out and was a really, really good wind tank, and now we have Oldoa coming out and being a really, really good ice tank, but for opposite sides. That kind of works into the thing of both of them being like good and bad, kind of like almost mirrors of each other. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. Oh, wrong tank. Well, damn. At least we got a little bit of interest there. Let's try it again. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Oldoa does in terms of performance tests over the next little bit, because Oldoa, I'm expecting really good things. Like, her kit is there. It's just a question of whether or not everything else is kind of there. So let's go through this. Call it a video. See if I can get under the 20-minute mark. No double rainbows in this one. Shoot. Wrong mage. What you gonna do, right? Sad. Anyway, so thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time for more discussion about whether this character actually does make the grade and how powerful she ends up being. Later.